In a world where immortality is a curse, the line between honor and destruction is more fragile than you might imagine. Elijah Mikaelson's life, the original vampire, is marked by cruel choices, family betrayals, and an unyielding quest for redemption. His journey leads him down a dark path where love, loyalty, and vengeance collide in ways you never expected. Get ready to uncover the true price of immortality. Elijah Mikaelson is not just one of the most powerful vampires in history. He's a tormented man caught between honor and the chaos his immortal existence has brought. Brother to Klaus, he lives in the shadow of a bloody legacy, always trying to salvage what remains of his soul. But with every step he takes, he drifts further from the man he once desired to be. What he sacrifices to protect those he loves is more than just the lives of others, it's his own essence. In this video, you'll witness how Elijah's life is a constant struggle against his own nature. Discover the darkest secrets of his story, the internal battles he faces, and the moments of pure betrayal that almost destroyed him. Prepare for an unfiltered view of the life of a man who tried to save himself and failed. Elijah Mikaelson's immortality is not a blessing, but a curse. Over millennia, he has become a man marked, carrying the weight of decisions that have turned him into what he is. Each shred of humanity he tried to hold onto has been torn apart by eternity and the pain it brings. Not only has he lost loves and friends over time, but he's also distanced himself from everything that once made sense. What weighs most on his existence are the memories of lost moments. Every face, every person he loved or lost continues to haunt him. The fleeting moments of happiness, now erased by the violence of his life, are memories that cut deep into his soul. The shadows of an irredeemable past, full of regrets, never leave him in peace. The relentless search for redemption becomes his only motivation, but it simultaneously pushes him into more existential dilemmas. Every choice he makes, no matter how selfless, takes him further from the freedom he so desperately desires. Immortality, for Elijah, becomes a cruel paradox. The desire for salvation collides with the weight of his untamable nature. Violence, inner monsters, and sacrifices come with a price. And in his constant battle to preserve his humanity, Elijah is forced to commit acts that drag him deeper into darkness. He knows, in the end, that he is a prisoner of his own creation. The man who tries to save others is, at the same time, a prisoner of his own destiny. What happens then, when a man desperately tries to escape the darkness, but it consumes him from the inside out? The pursuit of impossible redemption is not just a difficult path, but a torturous road where the fall seems inevitable. Elijah's story is not just one of survival. It is of a soul tormented by the eternal struggle between being something better and being the reflection of the scars that define him. The mortal bond with Klaus. If immortality weren't enough, Elijah is also bound to Klaus, his insane and unpredictable brother. Klaus, the monster he swears to protect, is also the very poison that corrupts his soul. Elijah's fraternal love is tested repeatedly in psychological and physical battles that show that no matter how hard he tries to escape, he will always be dragged back into Klaus's abyss. How far is Elijah willing to go to save his brother and himself? Elijah Mikaelson is a divided man, trapped in a web of loyalty and suffering due to his bond with Klaus, his immortal brother, a force of destruction, and an insatiable need to be loved. Elijah's fraternal love for Klaus is both his salvation and his ruin. Klaus, the cruel and unpredictable monster, reflects Elijah's own darkness, what he could have become had he not clung to the fragments of his humanity. This bond between the brothers is not just of blood, but of intertwined destinies. Klaus is not just a brother, but an emotional and moral prison for Elijah. With each mistake Klaus makes, Elijah feels the pain, not just from the tragedy that unfolds, but from the guilt of not doing enough to prevent the destruction caused by his brother. Often, Elijah sees himself more as Klaus's guardian than a man free in his own journey of redemption. However, Elijah's dilemma goes beyond simple fraternal loyalty. He is constantly caught between the need to protect Klaus and the need to save himself. Klaus, with his violence and impulsivity, continually tests Elijah, challenging his love, patience, and moral limits. Every attempt at redemption Elijah makes is thwarted by Klaus, whose destructive nature drags his brother further into darkness. He loves Klaus, but at what cost? With each choice, he drifts further from his humanity, plunging deeper into an abyss from which he cannot escape. The big question is, how far is Elijah willing to go to save his brother? And more importantly, how far can he go without losing himself to the very darkness he tries to fight? Among the shadows of Elijah Mikaelson's past, there is a presence that never fades. Tatia, the woman who, for a brief moment, captured the hearts of the Mikaelson brothers. For Elijah, she represents a life he never had, a humanity he lost over the centuries. His passion for her, tragically interrupted, still consumes him, keeping him trapped in a cycle of regret and loss. Like a ghost he cannot be freed from. Tatia is not just a distant memory. She is the measure of everything Elijah still desires, the reflection of the man he could have been, far from the shadows that define him. In every action he takes, her memory follows him, a constant reminder of a life he couldn't live. His love for her is unconditional, but also devastating, like a weight he bears alone. No matter how many centuries pass, his feelings for Tatia remain unchanged, as if she is always waiting for a chance at redemption that never comes. But, as always in Elijah's life, peace is never replaced by a simple answer. His obsession with Tatia becomes an emotional prison. She is not just a woman in his life, but the embodiment of everything he lost and everything he could never have. The love he feels for her is idealized, surpassing the limits of reality, which makes his search for redemption even more painful and difficult. Every step toward emotional healing is torpedoed by the specter of what Tatia represents: an unattainable love, a broken promise. The greatest test for this love, however, arises when Elijah finds himself drawn to another, equally deep and forbidden love. The arrival of new feelings challenges everything he thought was unshakable in his soul. He finds himself in an emotional dilemma. How to honor his love for Tatia when a new desire seduces him in such an unexpected way. The love he feels for Tatia is tested by this forbidden love, leading him to question how far he is willing to go to maintain his humanity, or if this love, like all others, is doomed to be tragically destroyed. Elijah Mikaelson's search for redemption is a solitary journey, a never-ending battle against the demons of his own making. In his heart, he believes salvation lies in saving others, in protecting the innocent and correcting centuries of mistakes. However, he remains trapped in a vicious cycle where his noble actions never seem to bring peace. The real battle isn't external, but internal. His immortality has bound him not only to his existence, but also to his failures, regrets, and the burden of his past choices. As he tries to redeem himself, he discovers that true redemption lies not in his actions, but in accepting who he has become. The curse of immortality isn't just punishment by time, but a condition that requires him to reinterpret his soul. Elijah may need to save himself first before he can save others. But is he ready to face this truth? The dilemma that haunts Elijah is that of a man doomed to be a hero while trapped in the darkness that defines him. He desperately wants to be the one who can save, protect, and fix what has been corrupted over his existence. But despite his battles against the demons around him, his good intentions often come with a heavy price. Every action he takes to ensure the well-being of others seems to result in devastating consequences for those around him. As a Mikaelson, he will never escape his legacy. His lineage is inextricably tied to destruction, pain, and betrayal. The tragedy that permeates his existence is a constant burden, a shadow that follows him wherever he goes. Even though he wants to be the hero, his choices are intertwined with the inevitability of his fall. Elijah's constant attempts to prove he is more than the monster his nature makes him result in him being pulled back to darkness with each step toward the light. The cynical side of him grows, nurtured by the pain of his choices over the centuries. What he once desired as something noble to be the hero has become a curse, a prison with no escape. He tries, but reality keeps showing him that the line between hero and villain is thinner than he ever imagined. Elijah faces an increasingly uncertain future. Can he truly achieve heroism, or, like all Mikaelsons, is he destined to be consumed by the darkness that has always accompanied him? His journey for redemption is marked by the fight against his own shadows, a battle he doesn't always win. In the end, Elijah faces an impossible dilemma: to be the hero the world needs, or to succumb to the legacy of destruction that his nature imposes on him. Elijah Mikaelson's loyalty is perhaps his greatest virtue, but also his greatest curse. Above all, he values fidelity, whether to family or friends. However, throughout the centuries, his loyalty has been tested in increasingly cruel ways. Those he trusted most, those who should have been his support, betrayed him in unimaginable ways, leaving him in an abyss of doubts about the true meaning of loyalty. In a world where even his own family, the Mikaelsons, can turn their backs on him, the concept of loyalty becomes confusing and dark. Elijah always saw himself as the protector, the shield of his bloodline. But what he learned the hardest way is that in the end, blood ties can be more fragile than any other bond. In crucial moments, when his loyalty was most needed, he was left alone, betrayed by those he loved most. This emptiness, this feeling of being discarded, transforms his view of the world and makes him more distrustful, less willing to trust anyone, even his own shadow. This transformation puts Elijah in an existential dilemma. He has always prided himself on his ability to be loyal. But what happens when he is forced to reevaluate what that really means? Loyalty, once an act of strength and honor, now feels like a prison. Sometimes being loyal means submitting to choices that hurt his own essence. And when the price of loyalty is betrayal and suffering, Elijah faces an impossible dilemma: to remain faithful to his principles or free himself from these chains that bind him to pain and betrayal. The greatest blow to Elijah doesn't come from violence or physical confrontation, but from the breaking of his own moral code. When he is forced to betray even the principles that defined who he is, he finds himself in a battle with his own identity. He must make unimaginable decisions that go against his own nature to survive. But at what cost? How far can he stray from his humanity without losing his soul? What happens when loyalty, which should be a pillar, becomes the weapon that destroys him? The answer lies in a dark place, where the line between right and wrong is obscured by the need for survival.